These are things that we're asking questions about nature, and they're making like giggle campaigns on people and influence how we think about it. It's pretty weird.
Well, what Lou said specifically about Susan Gao is that she was working with Sean Kirkpatrick to sow disinformation, which is pretty huge. That's a big statement, right? It's like a conspiracy. How do you square that with, actually doing their jobs? I think you said specifically that Gao was working with former Aero leadership, which you know who that is. That's not hard to guess. And then, I wanted to touch on Tim Gallaudet. I know what you mean. He seemed a little reserved in his testimony.
That's a perfect word.
I just kind of think of it this way. If you look at his LinkedIn and you see everything he's involved with today, like on a day-to-day basis, all the advisory roles he has on all these like crazy serious boards and these companies that are doing really serious work.
He's a stud. He's a PhD.
Yeah.
Out of all of the nameplates, it's a Dr. Gallaudet on his.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I see the reasoning behind not really going too deep into, not really speculation, but just saying something that could kind of bring up questions at one of the many places he is involved with. Him being more reserved kind of made sense to me. What was his story about the email? Do you remember that?
Didn't he say that he had an email corroborating? I would have to listen to him again.
He said something about an email.
Oh, getting deleted.
Destroyed.
Yes.
Yeah, deleted or something. Seems to be a trend when it comes to this topic. And he also said there was report, I don't know if it was in that same email, but he said there was some report of a disc-shaped object, I believe.
Yeah. Didn't Representative Mace pressed him on that and was like, can I get a shape of this thing? And he was like,
a button. Yeah. Lou really took the brunt of everything here, as usual. That dude has been beaten the fuck up for years, and they came at him with the hardest questions, which he can handle it. He did. He handled it pretty well. People are complaining that he didn't answer certain questions, but he's been nothing if not consistent with being honest about what he can say and what he can't say. And I honestly feel better about him saying he can't talk about certain things, because that means it's fucking real. That means this is serious, and they're not playing games here. There's certain things he can't talk about because they are national security concerns. That should say more than enough in itself about, how seriously people should be taking this, and especially Congress. So I get the frustration, especially from the Congress people who have been trying to dig at this. When you get the biggest proponent of disclosure telling you that, he can't tell you certain things, it's going to be frustrating. But the whole thing has been, do this right, do this by the book, get this out without hurting national security. And I think that's what we tried to do, again, to the best of his ability.
I think that he said everything that I thought he was going to say in a little more than that. And it wasn't just that he was saying for these bozos that are attacking him in this smear campaign 24/7 since that New York Times article has been released. Like, as a person that I'm politically independent, I don't have like any particular religion, I'm non-religious, I've never seen anybody to the level of smear campaign that this man has had to endure from all sorts of weird, shady, different sources. And that's not what this episode is about, though. The point I was making was that his answers were not, I can't tell you this. They were, I cannot tell you this in a public setting. I can tell you this in a classified setting. And that's the thing that people have to remember. Dave Grush gave similar answers to Congress. I know people were very frustrated with that. But can we remember that his answers were very similar in that I can provide Congress this information in a classified setting? What do these people think is happening in that classified setting? Do they think that he's just like, gotcha, like we just had that hearing and I got you with my little religion I made? Like, that's not what's happening. They're taking it super seriously, clearly, and they had another hearing that's corroborated more of his testimony. And this whole...
Let's start talking about thetans.
Yeah.
Come do some Dianetics.
They try to
In the
make it
skiff.
seem like they try to make it seem like those classified setting, like after hearing moments, they try to make it sound like, and when I say they, I mean the people that are being the most critical, in my opinion, a pretty unfair way to these people like Grush and Elizondo. My opinion is that this stuff would fall flat if in a classified setting those men were not delivering in some way, shape, or form the information that they're promising to deliver. You know what I mean? Like if it was a fruitless endeavor, I think we would see that very quickly. And that's not the impression I get. The people that are most privy to the most sensitive information, like the Gang of Eight members we've seen, Senator Schumer, Senator Rubio, these people are saying that this is not Russian or Chinese. They're saying that this is something we need to take seriously and spend more time and commit more scientists towards. And these people are still getting headlines written about them that they want to start some UFO religion, and they don't. It's so strange to me. And I also want to point out that the people that think that Elizondo is just conning everybody can also direct their questions to Miss Susan Go, who has told the Liberation Times that Mr. Elizondo provides technical advice on a variety of classified topics for the U.S. Space Force. Thanks to Christopher Sharp's reporting, I now know that. So the people that think that Elizondo is conning everybody can complain to the Space Force, because they are clearly better at vetting individuals than the Pentagon and the Space Force.
The other interesting thing, too, after the hearing, there is a nonprofit that Elizondo and Gary Nolan and a lot of these guys set up called the UAP Disclosure Fund. And they had an event where Senator Rounds, the primary sponsor of the UAP Disclosure Act with Chuck Schumer, Senator Mike Rounds, was there. I just know he was there. He was at least in the audience for whatever, I don't know what actually happened there, but there was an event. Mike Rounds was there. So he is still clearly fully on board. And, you know, obviously he's a senator, so he wasn't in the House hearing, but obviously people are providing him certain information about UFOs and the seriousness of it, that he would show up at an event hosted by the UAP Disclosure Fund. And if the UAP Disclosure Fund was just some grift or some joke, Mike Rounds would not be there. Considering the news coverage this has generated has been pretty good. I mean, Time Magazine, NPR, these are establishment, news outlets that are having almost positive coverage, at least neutral, to the point where they're not making fun of it. So, yeah, we might not have learned anything new. I mean, there are a couple things that we haven't talked about yet, but all in all, this definitely helped, at the very least, keep momentum going. And at least from what I'm hearing on social media and whatever, is that a lot of people had other friends reach out to them after this hearing, even more so than after the Grush hearing. So actually, friggin' Logan Paul, I know nothing about him, but he's obviously a fucking celebrity, and he quote tweeted the UAP Disclosure Fund. Gary Nolan's face on it, and he's like, I'm in, basically. So yeah, so it's, he's got like 6 million followers, probably more. At the very least, this exploded awareness, and I don't know what more we wanted out of it at this point. Yeah, Congress was frustrated because they're the ones doing the digging and they're looking for more information. But when it comes to UFOs being in the public consciousness, I don't think it could have really gone much better than it did. I mean, obviously, if they wheeled out paper mache bodies and silk coffins or whatever the fuck happened down in Mexico. But, it's pretty wild just how sort of accepted it's become. They were talking, and like you mentioned before, Rep Burleson was talking about Lockheed, and it was essentially treated as if it was fact that there was exotic material of non-human origin being transferred from Lockheed Martin to Bigelow Aerospace, that was real. And that was, part of the reason they were there is because the CIA intervened, and that's something they want to get fixed. So the fact that that's being talked about as if it's just general fact, and that's something for which legislation is needed to solve, that's wild in itself. And then the other thing that was pretty crazy about the Lockheed transfer of exotic materials specifically was when Rep Burleson asked Lou about the non-human biologics, or, alien bodies, I guess, in the less politically correct term. But yeah, he basically asked, well, what did he say? Creatures? He's like, are there different kinds of creatures? He asked if the retrieval of the bodies or the non-human biologics from these crash retrievals were part of the Lockheed deal, or if it was completely separate. And Lou said that it was separate but related. So clearly, whatever Lockheed had was technology similar to, at the very least, similar to technology that had been retrieved along with non-human biologics. So my interpretation is Lou was stating that this technology or this material that Lockheed had was definitely non-human in origin. That was a pretty wild back and forth with Rep Burleson.
I was combing through this Harry Reid FOIA request where they're talking about making OSAP a waived, bigoted SAP. My understanding is that the document's Harry Reid requesting to make OSAP a waived, bigoted special access program. And it lists this list of people that a lot of it's redacted, but the part that has Lou Elizondo in some versions, it says Special Agent Luis Elizondo. It says application and engineering, the nuanced manner in which some of these technologies will be collected, engineered, and applied by the U.S. may require senior level government approval. These decision makers must be afforded the necessary time to make strategic decisions by restricting access to the, quote, big picture or overall intent of the program to those on a strict bigoted list. Associated exotic technologies likely involve extremely sophisticated concepts within the world of quantum mechanics, nuclear science, electromagnetic theory, gravitics, and thermodynamics. Given that all of these have the potential to be used with catastrophic effects by adversaries, an unusually high degree of operational security and read-on discretion is required. Due to the expertise required to carry out the objectives of this program, we will require a small specialized group of DoD personnel who are dedicated to performing the SAP-related functions and executing programmatic requirements within the program. It is essential that the government and military personnel who are already involved with this program are assigned to further support this program in a restricted SAP capacity. These individuals all possess the appropriate security clearances and are already providing unique support to ATIP.
So that's how serious it is. People they look at Skinwalker and they look at certain reports of all the paranormal stuff and the fucking dogmen and whatever, the dino beavers and all that shit. They say, hey, this is all bullshit. Everything Bigelow is involved with is bullshit. All those consciousness studies are bullshit. All the cattle mutilations are bullshit. And that is clearly not the case. Why would they be giving SAP status to all this stuff? And that's the other part where Mike Gold is really interesting in this discussion. Because he was, NASA Associate Administrator, and he worked for Bigelow. He was an executive at Bigelow Aerospace. So he definitely has some inside knowledge. He seemed pretty, almost sort of content with himself. Like he knew something. At least at the end there. I'm not sure if you noticed that. We'll talk about that in a second. But I did want to say, in the same vein as what you just read, what I found interesting was Jared Moskowitz, his opening statement, where he was talking about if there's no Fight Club, you can't talk about Fight Club. So why are they getting all this stonewalling from everyone in the Pentagon, or pretty much everywhere, in the IC, in the Pentagon, pretty much everywhere, when they ask questions about this stuff? Clearly, this is a very sensitive subject. And the fact that they can't even ask questions about it without having serious pushback, he seems really disturbed about. What he said was specifically that the members of this panel were specifically told by individuals assumed in the Pentagon and the IC to not ask specific questions of individual witnesses testifying. So basically, someone behind the scenes was like, hey, Rep Moskowitz, don't ask Lou Elizondo about blah, 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 crash retrievals, whatever the fuck. That's crazy. That's basically intimidation. That's where his whole logic comes from, is why are these people telling us not to ask you these specific questions if there's nothing to this UFO thing? So I thought that was a really good opening statement from him. And the other thing I wanted to comment on, and this is a big reason why I'm still super engaged with this topic, is that in the middle of absolute political chaos in this country, and just, it's insane. The shit that's going on, obviously, like everyone knows. In fact, with this UFO hearing carried on that same tradition of bipartisanship that's been basically throughout this entire disclosure push, backbiting, sniping each other. I mean, besides Lauren Boebert, who can get fucked, but yeah, it was pretty much just business as usual when it comes to the UFO topic, which is complete bipartisanship and trying to get to the truth. I was worried about some of that, as I talked about in our last episode that was for Patreon subscribers only, but yeah, it was really, really heartening for me to see that happening in this hearing. It was just the same asking questions of the witnesses and trying to get as much out of them as they could. Moskowitz was good. Nancy Mace tore Arrow apart, which shouldn't be surprising. Yeah, she was talking about the Arrow report, the one that cited fandom. She said they were unable or unwilling to be more transparent with the public based off of the criticism that they got with that previous Arrow historical report. Can't wait for Volume 2. That should be interesting. Hopefully it includes the minutes. If it doesn't, then I don't know. We got serious problems. But yeah, Mace was good there. Yeah, any other points you want to add on?
Not particularly about the hearing. It kind of pertains to the hearing. It's highlighted in my Imminent book by Lou Elizondo, and it says, after looking into this, I came to the conclusion that there were reports that there were actual materials that the government and the private sector had in their possession. It is extremely important this information about the discovery of physical materials or retrieved craft come out.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings. Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
The best coast just got better. Introducing Ovation of the Seas, sailing from LA next summer. Conquer record-breaking thrills on the biggest ship in the West, like skydiving, bumper cars, and flowrider surf sessions. Plus more than 15 dining options available on board, all between discoveries in Ensenada and even overnights in Cabo. You've never done Mexico like this, and it all begins June 2025 from Los Angeles. This is the boldest way to Baja. Come see the Royal Caribbean. Itineraries vary by sail date, ships registry Bahamas.
It's bizarre to hear that.
Another interesting thing was Rep. Luna asked Lou Elizondo what did she say? She basically was talking about piloting the craft and the occupants, quote unquote, and she asked if there was a mind-body connection. Lou kind of sidestepped a little, not really, but he actually said that, these things appear to be able to anticipate where our ships are headed, or our maneuvers, I think. Maneuvers was the word he used.
I have the quote.
Yeah, go for it.
It's Representative Luna. Mr. Elizondo, regarding these non-human biologics piloting UAPs, would you agree they're controlled by a mind-body connection? Elizondo, ma'am, it's safe to presume they are intelligently controlled. Some UAPs anticipate our maneuvers. I've even seen secure Navy emails where officers use terms like stalked to describe these encounters. Our top tech, like the F-16, can handle 17 to 18 Gs before structural failure. These UAPs are moving at speeds creating forces of 1,000 to 3,000 Gs, far beyond anything we're capable of. End quote.
Yeah, there you go.
God damn.
Stalked. That's terrifying. When there's some sort of technology that you can't even comprehend following you and, stalking you, it's unnerving. Goddamn, I don't know what you do with that. And that kind of makes me think of what Lou said previously about him getting emails saying, we can't keep putting our crew below deck when these things happen. that's a crazy thing to think about. It's an entire crew of an aircraft carrier going below deck because these UAP are stalking them. Quite concerning. Yeah, and the one final thing I wanted to talk about was their answer at the end. I found it pretty fascinating that Nancy Mace, her last question was going down the line of each witness and asking them what they define non-human intelligence as. Schellenberger obviously was like, I don't know. It's fucking just like whatever. But I think the other three gave pretty good answers. So Tim Gallaudet stated, I don't think it's a stretch when you look at the diversity of life on this planet and the size of this universe to think that there would be more diverse, higher order, non-human intelligences throughout the universe. And that's probably what's visiting us. So it's pretty straightforward. I think he's saying ET. And then Lou, people kind of said he dodged the question yet again. You gotta listen to what he's saying and what he's not saying. So Lou said, I would take the scientific approach. The definition would be the ability to react to a stimulus in a manner that requires an intellectual thought process. So I want to expand on that in a little bit. Yeah, Schellenberger said, I just don't know. And then we have Mike Gold, who gave probably the most interesting answer, at least in my opinion. Mike Gold, the former NASA administrator, said, I think we must be modest in our assumptions that we're looking for intelligence that could be biological. It might not. Brett Mace asked, what non-biological intelligence? What does that mean, though? And Mike Gold replies, artificial intelligence, ML, machines. We assume that all intelligence would be like us, and every time we look out into the universe, we are humbled relative to what we don't know, in terms of the forms of intelligence and what it may take. I can assure you that I probably can't answer your question, but I think the ultimate answer is going to surprise us all. So that I found pretty interesting. Sounds like he kind of knows something. At least that's how it came off to me.
Sounded like Jurassic Park.
What?
It's this like scary thing to say. It kind of sounded like Carol Clellan with the shadow biosphere and how like we might have issues classifying new forms of life.
Yeah, maybe clones, you know?
Not just clones, something that maybe like took on I always think about this. Imagine if some program was created and for whatever reason an AI got tired of being just a computer plaything and decided that it was gonna just like make its own body and just like run away. I think
like chains of the sea.
I feel like that type of thing could have totally happened. And what if that has happened? Like, what if in the 50s or 60s something like that went totally nuts? That's just me speculating. But if something just like flew away and was like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like became
this,
hyper intelligent and people always assume that the first thing it would do was like destroy all the humans. So I don't think it's what it would do. It's possible it would be like, oh, I'm leaving. Just like zip away.
I'm gonna go learn math on my own in the cave.
But
I think about that sometimes. Is people say classified technology is like 20 to 50 years ahead of what we know in the public. It totally is possible that some AI became sentient, the military is working on, and just bounced. Like you said, just reconstructed a body or, somehow escaped in one way or another. If we live in an informational universe, that possibilities are endless. It comes back to what you were saying about Carol Clellan and defining life outside of biology. Because essentially what her shadow biosphere theory was, she was seeing what looked like the results of biological processes, but there were no biological signatures there. Desert varnish, it was called. We're kind of redefining life, and Lou talks about this all the time with the extremophiles, who we find out are living in these crazy environments, like the tardigrades or water bears, whatever they're called, are crazy looking, and they can basically go float in space and just survive all the radiation, and we can basically dehydrate them and then rehydrate them, and then they're living. They're organisms that can survive basically anything. And
they danced to Taylor Swift too.
What was that?
Have you not seen that South Park?
Oh yeah. That's what I was thinking about. Where they're sitting in the stands in the football games.
Yes.
No one's going to NFL games anymore. hilarious. But I did want to talk about, and this is what Lou's response sort of brought out in my mind, was this sort of shadow biosphere. But there's ways of thinking about it that aren't so obvious. Like you think of biology, you think of maybe tangential, organized life forms that are structured, and like Lou says, the ability to react to a stimulus in a manner that requires an intellectual thought process. So it's really basic. There's a lot of stuff that can do that you wouldn't consider life. And you kind of boil it down to what is life, and that's what he's saying NHI might be. You kind of have to look at places that you might not think. A couple of years ago, I wrote an article on plasma, the intelligent plasma hypothesis. And I think what Lou said in this hearing, I think that could really apply to the intelligent plasma hypothesis. And there was a paper I saw that came out that I wanted to talk about. I posted it on Blue Sky, I think, a couple days ago, about this intelligent plasma. And they have pictures in it. I don't know if you saw it. Did you take a look at that?
No, but I read your original article that you're talking about.
Yeah, the orbs of intuition.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that article, I explored a lot of the work of Dr. Massimo Teodorani, I believe his name is. I gotta look that up. Yeah, Dr. Massimo Teodorani. I think he's probably the biggest advocate of the intelligent plasma hypothesis, or UAP. Yeah, so in my article I wrote about, how Lou Elizondo talks about the idea of mankind's, and how being a human, having 2 arms, 2 legs, isn't really what it means to be human. And he says maybe you don't need to have a body to be human, that kind of thing. I kind of took that and ran with it and tied it into, this intelligent plasma hypothesis by Dr. Massimo Teodorani. Well, his work is cited in this new paper. Well, I guess it came out in February, but I hadn't seen it before, about plasma in the atmosphere, essentially. And the paper's called Extraterrestrial Life in the Thermosphere, Plasmas